sectoral cooperation on regional, local, and national level is the missing link in pushing reforms on the ground. Before giving the words to the representative of the host in APRODEV, where we are holding our workshop, two additional notes. In order to enable the introductory remarks and the discussion to be available to a louder audience, we're going to record and film through a web camera, not live, but on the website we will make available all of the discussions, so you should be aware of that. And lastly, but not least, I would like to thank at this point all our supporters and funders of our activities, among who, not just our funders, but basically supporters of our work, among who is APRODEV, our today's host, but also Balkan Trust Fund for Democracy and DFID. Thank you. Rob, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tanya. A warm welcome also on behalf of APRODEV. It's good to see some familiar faces from the last meeting that we had here last year, but also good to see some new faces. For those of you who do not know APRODEV, it's the association of 17 development and humanitarian aid agencies in Europe that work closely together with Protestant, Orthodox and Anglican churches in Europe. We are a small office here of 8 people, and we focus mainly on EU development and related policies. And through our members, we have close links with these churches and a large constituency in Europe that is aiming at, that is committed to eradicating poverty, to global justice, and to protecting the environment, or God's creation, as we say in this house. Besides lobby and advocacy, APRODEV is also engaged in capacity building programs. Notably, we had, for example, a couple of years ago, a 3-year intensive capacity building program with partner organizations in Eastern Europe, in the Caucasus, in Central Asia, and indeed also in the Balkans. And for many of the partner organizations that participated in this capacity building program, it was the first occasion to meet this very special species that we call European Union civil servants. That was quite new for them. They were introduced also in their national countries to the EU delegations. They came to Brussels to have dialogue with the policymakers here. And we tried to explain to them as best as we could how EU structures function or not, who is responsible for certain things or who is not, and these kind of issues. That was well before the Lisbon Treaty was accepted, and I'm afraid that some of the knowledge of the partners as well as us ourselves here is now a bit outdated, because the EU is supposed to function now in a different way. So in that sense, the adoption of the Lisbon Treaty was just the end of the beginning, and I hope not the beginning of the end. One of the networks that we worked very closely together with was the Balkans Civil Society Development Network. Personally, I find it very impressive to see how the network has grown in professionalism and expertise, how it's finding ways to stand on its own feet, and therefore I think it's truly an example of best practice. And so we are proud to be engaged with the network, and we're happy to host this meeting. Now, the topic of the meeting is civil society dialogue, and that is a very hot topic in Brussels these days, if only because it's discussed in the so-called Quadrilogue context in which APRODEV is also very active. Civil society dialogue between civil society organizations, NGOs on the one hand, and EU institutions on the other, have existed for many years. But what is at stake now is how we can structure those dialogues in a better way. And that we can only applaud. But in the end, of course, it's not about the structures. It's about the content of the dialogue, as well as the will of the participants to engage in such a meaningful dialogue. So structures can be beautiful, but sometimes people can get in the way of structures. You can take a horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink. So from the side of the institutions, I think the political will needs to be there to engage in civil society dialogue. And in their turn, civil society organizations have to demonstrate that it makes sense for the political institutions to have this dialogue. It should be clear that through this dialogue we are engaging and we are approaching a win-win situation for all those who participate. And for civil society, this means that we have to operate with a certain degree of professionalism, and that we are also representative of certain sectors in society. Now, for me, both conditions are largely met by the Balkans network, so we shouldn't worry about that. I would also like to say that for this civil society dialogue, there is no one-size-fits-all format. Each situation is different, and we need to take account of the context. Maybe superfluous to say, but I want to emphasize again that civil society organizations have no intention to sit on the chairs of those who are elected in public office, of governments or civil servants. We are not the elected representatives of our country, but we do believe that we have something to contribute from our specific expertise, from our experience, and from our links with certain groups in society. And we believe that decision makers in the public domain can also benefit from that. And we can benefit from their insights. So with these very general observations, I would like to say, let this episode of Civil Society Dialogue begin.
Thank you.